thank you for having us here today. So today I am at, where am I at?
Sunbeam
Watercress, just outside of Salisbury, a few miles from Romsey.
That's right.
And how many miles from Southampton coast?
We are about 10 miles from Southampton.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the history.
My grandfather bought this farm back in 1934, and I'm third generation still continuing the watercress. My dad did it for 40 years but has recently retired, so it's just me now.
So tell me about how much land have you got here and how big is the actual site?
We've got a 70-acre farm here, of which the stream where we grow the watercress is only 2 or 3 acres. And that's been like that since 1964 when my grandfather expanded it. We produce watercress 52 weeks of the year. We're one of the only growers in the country still doing it. I think there's probably about 4 or 5 of us. A lot of the watercress does now come from abroad, but we're one of the traditional growers that is still doing what we're doing now, what we were doing 60 years ago. We plant everything once a year. So we clean everything out once a year, and then we'll start at the top here where all the water rises out of natural springs, and we just work our way all the way down the stream. And then we got a crop rotation, so every week we'll plant one bed from March through till about June, and then by the end of the summer in September we would have had everything planted, and then that will sustain us all through the winter, where we protect it from the cold weather by raising the water, keeping the frost off, keeping the snow out.
How do you actually raise the water? Have you got kind of like outlets that you'd let more water in?
So we have quite a simple method, just using bricks and bags. So
okay.
Either side of the watercress itself you can see the gullies. So all we're doing, the water is flowing down these gullies, and then at the bottom of each bed we can just effectively create a dam, and that will flood the bed. So the more water there is, the more it will protect the cress in the winter. We don't need a lot of water in the summer.
In terms of the pandemic this year, how has that affected your business?
It's affected us really badly. It's been really hard to estimate what we have to grow in, because we're thinking in February and March what we need for June, and to do that it was impossible. We've chucked so much away this year, where we just took a chance and just had to grow it in because we didn't know what was happening.
So who would your normal customers be? So
we deal with the South Coast customers, mainly the wholesale markets. So we're a very local company supplying we initially started doing all the wholesale markets in Southampton, all the Navy ships, the cruise ships. Since then we've expanded a little bit into the London markets, the Brighton markets.
Tell me a little bit more about watercress. I mean, do you love eating it yourself? You're going to say no?
I do eat a lot of it, but I do eat a huge amount of it, but mainly when I'm on site working. I don't take a huge amount home.
Okay.
I take some home for my wife to cook some watercress soup.
So in terms of harvesting time, what's your day like? When do you start? When do you finish? What's involved? How many staff are involved in harvesting it?
So we tend to work the daylight hours. We'll get here from as early as 5 o'clock in the morning to start cutting. The earlier you cut, the easier it is to cut because it's still got the dew on it and it's moist. You don't want to cut at this time of the day, so a lot of the watercress will be dry. So first thing we'll do in the morning is come out and we'll cut everything. And at the moment there's just me cutting the 2 to 3 acres out here, just with a knife. If you can see the beds out there, we usually cut roughly a couple of beds a week, 1 to 2 beds a week. And then we'll go on to the next 2. Once I've cut that, we'll go into the pack house up there, and we still traditionally bunch it and pack it into ice packs, and now we do punnets and bags for yourselves. Everything is done by hand here, so we don't use any machinery in the beds. We plant everything by hand, we clean out everything by hand, and we harvest everything by hand.
So how long would it take you to do one bed? Is it literally all day?
No, we usually finished harvesting and packing everything up by about midday, and then in the afternoon we spend all our time maintaining, so the patch that we've cut we might trim off to produce new shoots. One of these beds we might get 6 crops in a year out of.
So it just regrows?
So it just regenerates all the time. So we've got so much to do, and then with everything else around here we've still got another the same strain of watercress here since the 1930s, and it's naturally developed into our own crop. And as a traditional grower, we tend to grow it that much bigger than what you might find in the supermarkets. As it gets bigger, it produces a much more peppery flavour, and is a proper traditional crop.
What would you recommend this watercress? Is it very special for, you mentioned earlier about soups and things like that, is that the sort of thing, would you use it for salads as well? Does it cover the whole cross section of cookery?
Yeah, so obviously with the flavours, soups and pestos are great. If you make soup, you want to go to your greengrocer and buy traditional English bunch watercress. The flavour is incredible. Now, traditionally, watercress is a autumn and winter crop, so it was always harvested from September through to April. But now it's come in and is seen as a salad crop, so it's perfect for the summer, and it's also very good for garnishes with steaks and watercress salads.